What if the oil you cooked your eggs in this morning is quietly shrinking your brain? Not the food, not the portion size, the oil. The one sitting on your counter right now, the one with a label that says heart healthy or light or natural. Because here is what the latest neuroscience is confirming, and what almost no one in mainstream health is talking about directly to people over 60. Certain oils that have been aggressively marketed as healthy for the last 4 decades are not neutral inside your body. They are actively inflammatory. They cross the blood-brain barrier. They embed themselves in the fatty tissue of your neurons, and over time, they change how your brain functions at a cellular level. Today we are going to talk about 3 of those oils, the ones researchers are now connecting to accelerated cognitive decline and shrinking brain volume in adults over 60. And then we are going to talk about the 3 oils that do the opposite, the ones that literally feed your brain, protect your neurons, and in some cases have been shown to reverse early cognitive decline. Stay until the end, because the last oil on the good list is the one most people over 60 are not using nearly enough of, and the research behind it is extraordinary. Before we get into the specific oils, you need to understand one thing about your brain that changes everything. Your brain is approximately 60% fat by dry weight. That is not a metaphor. The physical structure of your neurons, the myelin sheaths that insulate them, the membranes of every single brain cell you have, they are built from fat. Which means the fats you eat are not just fuel, they are literally construction material. Every time you eat a meal that contains fat, you are giving your brain either high-quality building materials or damaged ones. And the difference between those 2 outcomes is not subtle. It shows up in memory, processing speed, focus, and over years, in the structural integrity of the brain itself. The brain you have at 75 is partly a reflection of the fats you have been eating since you were 50. That is the context that makes everything on this list matter. The first oil to remove from your kitchen is canola oil. This one generates the most resistance because canola oil has been marketed with exceptional success. It is in nearly every restaurant kitchen in America. It fills entire grocery store shelves. It carries the American Heart Association seal of approval, and for a generation of health-conscious seniors, it became the default cooking oil. The problem begins with how canola oil is made. Canola is derived from the rapeseed plant, and transforming it into the clear, odorless, shelf-stable liquid you buy in a bottle requires industrial processing that includes high heat extraction, chemical solvents including hexane, and a deodorization process that can generate trans fatty acid byproducts. The omega-6 to omega-3 ratio in canola oil sits around 2 to 1 in its raw form, which sounds reasonable, but the processing degrades a significant portion of those omega-3s, and what remains is a highly unstable fat that oxidizes rapidly when heated. Oxidized fats are neurotoxic. A 2019 study published in Scientific Reports fed canola oil to mice over 6 months and found significant increases in amyloid plaque formation, the same plaques associated with Alzheimer's disease, alongside measurable declines in working memory. The researchers specifically noted that canola consumption was associated with weight gain and a worsening of the amyloid beta to amyloid beta ratio in the brain. No study is a final verdict, but when the direction of the evidence points consistently toward harm in the brain, and when a better alternative exists, the choice becomes clear. The second oil is one most people consume without realizing it: soybean oil. It is the single most consumed cooking oil in the United States. It is in salad dressings, in packaged snacks, in the oil blend at almost every fast food chain, in margarine, in crackers, in bread, in mayonnaise. If a product says vegetable oil on the label, it is almost certainly soybean oil. And for your aging brain, this is a serious problem. Soybean oil is extremely high in omega-6 fatty acids, specifically linoleic acid. Omega-6 fats are not inherently dangerous. Your body needs some of them. The issue is ratio. Historically, humans consumed omega-6 and omega-3 fats in a ratio of roughly 1:1 or 2:1. The modern Western diet has pushed that ratio to as high as 20:1 in favor of omega-6. That chronic imbalance drives systemic inflammation, and systemic inflammation is one of the most well-documented drivers of neurodegeneration. A 2020 study from the University of California, Riverside found that soybean oil consumption caused changes in the hypothalamus region of the brain, affecting hundreds of genes involved in neurological function, including genes linked to Alzheimer's disease and autism. The lead researcher described the findings as alarming. For an older brain already managing the natural reduction in neuroplasticity that comes with age, chronic neuroinflammation driven by excessive omega-6 consumption accelerates the exact processes you most want to slow down. The third oil is one that lives in your pantry under a different name every time. Partially hydrogenated vegetable oil, corn oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, and most generic vegetable oil blends. These are all high in polyunsaturated omega-6 fats that become unstable and inflammatory at cooking temperatures. Some versions still contain residual trans fats from the hydrogenation process. Trans fats are so definitively linked to brain damage that the FDA moved to ban artificial trans fats entirely, and yet trace amounts remain legal in processed foods. The mechanism of harm is specific. Trans fats and oxidized polyunsaturated fats incorporate themselves into cell membranes, including neuron membranes, and they make those membranes rigid and poorly functional. A healthy neuron membrane needs to be fluid and flexible to transmit signals efficiently. When damaged fats replace healthy ones in that membrane, signal transmission slows. Communication between brain regions becomes less efficient, and over years, that degraded communication is what we experience as cognitive decline, slower recall, difficulty finding words, losing the thread of conversations. Now let us talk about what to use instead. Because the solution here is not to fear fat. The solution is to replace inflammatory fats with the fats your brain was designed to run on. The first essential oil is extra virgin olive oil. If you take nothing else from this video, take this. Extra virgin olive oil is one of the most extensively studied neuroprotective foods in human nutritional science. The Mediterranean diet, which uses olive oil as its primary fat, is consistently associated in large-scale studies with reduced risk of cognitive decline, reduced risk of Alzheimer's disease, and slower brain aging across multiple populations. The reason goes beyond the well-known antioxidant content. Olive oil contains a compound called oleocanthal, which research has shown can actually help clear amyloid plaques from the brain by stimulating the autophagy process, essentially activating the brain's own cleaning mechanism. A 2022 study in the journal Annals of Clinical and Translational Neurology found that daily consumption of extra virgin olive oil was associated with reduced Alzheimer's-related pathology at the cellular level. The key is extra virgin and cold-pressed. Light olive oil, pure olive oil, and refined olive oil have been processed in ways that remove most of the polyphenols responsible for these protective effects. Use extra virgin olive oil raw on salads, on vegetables, on eggs after cooking. When you need to cook with it, keep the heat medium and low. Its smoke point is sufficient for gentle cooking, but it is at its most protective unheated. The second oil your brain needs is coconut oil, and specifically its more concentrated derivative, MCT oil. This is where the conversation about brain fuel becomes genuinely fascinating. Your brain runs primarily on glucose, but there is a second fuel source the brain can use with remarkable efficiency, one that becomes increasingly important as we age: ketones. Ketones are produced when the liver metabolizes medium-chain triglycerides, which are the specific fats found in coconut oil and concentrated in MCT oil. As the brain ages, its ability to efficiently use glucose can decline, particularly in individuals with insulin resistance or early metabolic dysfunction. This is one of the reasons some researchers have begun referring to Alzheimer's as type 3 diabetes, the brain's loss of ability to fuel itself properly with glucose. Ketones bypass that problem. They are an alternative fuel that neurons can use even when glucose metabolism is impaired. MCT oil converts to ketones within hours of consumption and crosses the blood-brain barrier directly. A landmark study by Dr. Mary Newport documented remarkable cognitive improvements in an Alzheimer's patient who began consuming coconut oil daily, with improvements visible within weeks and confirmed through cognitive testing. Larger clinical trials have since explored MCT supplementation in cognitive decline with promising results. Start with 1 teaspoon of MCT oil in your morning coffee or smoothie and increase gradually. Too much too fast can cause digestive discomfort. Full-fat coconut oil is also excellent for cooking at higher temperatures because its saturated fat structure makes it highly stable under heat, meaning it does not oxidize the way vegetable oils do. The third oil is the one most seniors are not getting enough of, and the research behind it is perhaps the most important on this entire list. This is the oil form of omega-3 fatty acids, specifically DHA-rich fish oil. DHA, which stands for docosahexaenoic acid, is the omega-3 fatty acid most concentrated in human brain tissue. Your brain does not just use DHA for energy. It uses DHA as a structural component of neuron membranes, the myelin sheaths protecting your nerve fibers, the synaptic connections through which every thought, every memory, every word you recall actually travels. DHA is the raw material your brain uses to maintain and rebuild itself. And after 60, the brain's ability to synthesize DHA from dietary precursors declines significantly. You need to consume it directly. A 2022 meta-analysis published in Nutrients reviewing 17 clinical trials found that omega-3 supplementation, particularly DHA, produced significant improvements in memory, attention, and processing speed in adults with mild cognitive impairment. Fatty fish like wild salmon, sardines, and mackerel are the best whole food sources, but for most people over 60, a high-quality fish oil supplement of 1 to 2 grams of combined EPA and DHA daily provides a level of brain support that diet alone is unlikely to match. Look for products that are third-party tested for purity, and that list EPA and DHA amounts separately rather than just total fish oil content. Here is the simple truth that ties all of this together. Your brain is not declining because of aging alone. It is declining partly because of what you have been feeding it. 40 years of low-fat dietary advice pushed people away from the very fats the brain needs to function and toward industrial seed oils that fuel inflammation. The canola oil, the soybean oil, the vegetable oil blends sitting in millions of kitchens right now, they are not neutral. They are contributing to the epidemic of cognitive decline happening in people over 60 at a scale that should be treated as a public health emergency. But you are not powerless. The fats you eat today begin changing your brain chemistry within days. The olive oil you drizzle on your dinner tonight delivers oleocanthal that your brain will use before you wake up tomorrow. The MCT oil in your morning coffee gives neurons an alternative fuel that bypasses the glucose dysfunction driving early memory loss. The DHA in a quality fish oil supplement is incorporated into neuron membranes within weeks, improving the very infrastructure through which your thoughts travel. This is not complicated. It does not require expensive programs or prescriptions. It requires choosing differently at the grocery store, reading labels with new eyes, and understanding that the oil you cook with is not a minor detail. It is one of the most direct decisions you make about your brain's future. You have that information now. Use it.